Thanks again for being here. This is video 3 of my 3-part series. We've already looked at file structure, wireframing, and user flows. Today I want to dive into a little bit of how I go through and define interactions within a user flow. This can be kind of complicated because a lot of times aesthetic design in Sketch or Illustrator, Photoshop, or XD doesn't really communicate how you move throughout screens. Even in modern prototyping software like InVision, there's not a very good way to look at the application as a whole. You can go through and tap through different screens, but you have to kind of stumble through and explore that. I do use InVision in a lot of these prototyping softwares, but this is a format we used at Google, and it was very good to understand kind of the overall architecture of the app and how you move through it without having to deliver a prototype and go through the pains of teaching someone what is or isn't functional in the prototype. So I don't currently use this a lot today because we're moving so quick and so iterative, but it was a nice workflow that we had at Android that I really enjoyed and wanted to share with you guys today. All right, communicating interaction. Last week I went through an overall wireframe from a high level, really just talking about steps and states and requirements for an application. The issue with that document is very high level. It doesn't get into the actual UI of what you're drawing. I didn't even have screens, right? It's just these little icons. So today I want to get into very specific and granular documents that I've delivered and am delivering that show not only screens, but some detail and some interactions and some different ways to deliver those. So in the template that I shared last week, if you've already downloaded it, you've seen part of this. The document just showed kind of the steps. And this works from a very high level before you've designed any UI. But once you've designed UI, it's nice to deliver a final document that shows exactly what you expect from an interaction, a visual, and a functionality standpoint. This can get kind of laborious, but on larger teams or if you're working remote, it's kind of nice to have a source of truth and a point of record, which we called it at Google. So what I did is I leveraged this template in Sketch, and I made a template that has strictly just a raster graphic in it, namely being a phone screen in this situation. The nice thing about this is you can take a very simple state like I did in the last video and still have a title and a very simple descriptor, but also have a visual with it. And in a similar manner, I'm taking some of these simple line tools to show what exactly on screen is being interacted with to change statefulness or to move throughout the flow. The one thing I don't like about this is that Sketch's like actual, what do they call them? Like the end caps. Yeah, the end and start arrows and caps, there's not a lot of options and they're kind of ugly, but they do the job. I have another flow and another option I'm going to show in a little bit about doing this in Google Documents actually, which is interesting, but we'll save that for later. So what I do is I have this document. These are all, once again, advanced symbols, so you can quickly just say choose image and go to your export folder and pick whatever screen you need. But the reality is you come in here and you can create your flow. So in this scenario, this is the Camo app I've talked about in the past. And the flow is editing a hex value and a dialog. And so here, the edit color dialog, user taps the field to edit. We show an active state on the fields. The keyboard is active to edit a hex value. User types new value. Then they hit this close dialog and the pattern refreshes. This is a very simple flow. I'm going to probably animate this and show a prototyping tutorial as well. But as you can see, very quickly I can go through this flow and comment it and as well as show a graphic. So let's say I want to show the resolution of this. I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to swap the image. I think I have a new pattern here. Let's say that's what it resolved to. I'm gonna flow out here one more flow just so it makes sense, and then I'm gonna go into Google Drive and how I've done this as well in an online software for commenting and more sharing. So let's say I've now changed my pattern and color, and I want to download the SVG. For those of you that don't know, I did a little tutorial and used this app as an example. It's nothing that exists. I want it just because I love camo, but it's a little web app that has different SVG camo patterns and the ability to change 4 hex colors within that pattern, and you can swap out the pattern. So you can change the color and change the pattern and then download an SVG. Kind of a dumb app no one needs, but it was fun to mock up. So what I'm going to do, just for the sake of efficiency, I'm going to take all these screens, I'm going to duplicate them, and I have a flow already exported from my sketch file that shows a download flow, and have them lettered here. So I'm going to start off with the first step there, and go through these. So after they have this pattern created, they like, the user is going to be able to hit this download icon. I'm going to walk this all the way over here to here. I've also created these little shared styles, so you know it's easy to do this. So after they have the pattern they like, this is the pattern editing and creation flow. I have this download button, so they're going to click download. They're going to get the share sheet, so I can update this and say download share sheet, user sees options for download. The second state of that, I'm going to get here, say, we'll just call this select state, more general, select state. We'll put user taps Google Drive. The next state would be the downloading state. So this is just showing statefulness of a flow and making sure that every bit in between has a visual representation and takes in consideration what we might need to build to make that flow feel seamless and not jaggy. You can very much say like user taps download, downloads SVG, but there's a select state, there's a processing state, a success state, and so I'm trying to show that flow here within these different screens and provide some simple notes for whoever's looking at the document. So here putting download state, it says show spinner while download is processing. And then I'm going to show a success state. It's always nice to reward people when things go right. Success state. Show confirmation of completed download. We don't need this one. So now they have all the states there, I can just copy these little arrows. Most of this is just kind of happening in a flow, but there are a couple interactions here. So here they tap Google Drive. See how ugly that arrow is? Sketch, if you're watching, anyone at Sketch is watching, please make these arrows better, or if you're a developer and can make plugins for this. So share sheet comes up, they hit Google Drive. It processes, there's a different visual representation there, and then it downloads. Cool. So this is very specific. Obviously, if I wanted to get into the depths of this, I would show an error state for a lot of these things. If there's other needed actions after tapping where you want to download, I would have to show those as well. This is showing a quick way of how to use that existing template for some simple flows. So another issue I've run into is communicating what happens and what do you do when you need to show like a long press or a swipe, and there's not a visual UI you can just like reference, like they're tapping this. This is obviously common in mobile apps or anything that would be gestural. And so I'm going to show you the actual sketch file for this app. You could very well show those interactions here. I wanted this document for the flows to be very simple and very clean. But I want to show you how I've practically done this in my sketch files where I'm actually doing the UI work. So this file, I've created these very annoyingly bright pink touch and interaction gestures. We do this a lot of Android to show interaction and what things are being done where and how the user is interacting with the screen. I've seen a lot of people animate these as well, which is really nice, but sometimes I think unnecessary. Essentially what I've done is I have this as my tap, this is a double tap, this is a double finger tap, and then a swipe left. I think I have a swipe right in here as well. I'll include these in my template so you guys can have them. You can create your own, they're very basic. Swipe left, swipe right, swipe down, swipe up. Essentially, you copy and paste these on top of your UI. The reality is what I'll do often is I will show For instance here, my thought is that if you tap the screen, this card from the bottom will kind of come up and become present, so you can have this nice clean empty state. Let's say we wanted to swipe down or swipe up to get that. I could swap this symbol out, set it to its original size, and you can imagine on swipe up, then you'll see this screen here. I've gone through this a little bit in my other videos, but I always have my flows start with kind of a title screen here. So there's a change pattern flow, there is a edit hex flow, and then there is a download SVG flow, which I just showed. So my conundrum here is that I could go through and drop these indicators everywhere that I need them to go. So I could say, we want a refresh button here that's going to refresh and come here like this. So every time I tap refresh, we jump to the next screen, and then it resolves on a new pattern. I can mock all this up so that these interactions live on top of my design and show what interaction is happening, but there's no good way to share all of this as one cohesive document. I think that the simple tap flows have been solved. Like InVision and all those apps that do simple hot spotting across screens works really well. The problem with that is you can't ever look at the application as a whole and understand where everything exists, all the the depth and breadth of the application itself. You only can take it screen by screen, so you have to explore your way through the app. But when you're looking at an overall project and trying to scope it or trying to have high level conversations, it becomes very difficult on a screen to screen basis. So I can open up my sketch file and literally walk through it with someone. This becomes kind of difficult. I've solved it a couple different ways. I've gone through and flowed out this entire thing. I'll create a dumb line and be like, the tap here does this here. The problem is Sketch has all these different ways where now I drew that line, but it's tricky on sometimes it's actually on the artboard, sometimes it's not. And it becomes difficult to really manage all these things in one spot. You can do this and say, when you tap that, it goes here. And I've done this. I did this at Google, right? This is how I flowed out some of my projects. The problem is once I have that, now I need to create another artboard that kind of sits behind everything and export this as one major file. So this automatically happens. It renders. I can go through. I could even say, just like in the other flow, if I tap this card, you're going to come down here and start this flow. Right? I can go through and do this. I don't think this is bad, but it's definitely manual and kind of difficult. I'm going through this to show the process, but I don't even know how much I recommend doing this in depth. A lot of times you'll create this document and then very soon something will change, and you went through all this time to create this beautiful document that's well thought out. Things will change. You have to update your designs, update your flows, re-export this, and have it a new point of record. Sometimes it's necessary. We did it at Google. I was working with a team in Kirkland up in Washington, and so it was very necessary to have very thorough and detailed documents so that everyone was on the same page. I don't like this because it creates these weird artboards on artboards, but it does work. So this is, if you find that you like this model, go do it. It definitely works and gives you that high level view with the touch points. This document doesn't. So I'm giving you a variety of a spectrum of options here. This gives you simply the steps and screens. This gives you just the steps, no screens, and just kind of statefulness. This one gives you in your actual design file, interaction and all the details within the flow. You could mix them up. You could take these hotspot items and throw them in this document on the screens as well. Maybe that's the better way to do it, is just to throw these interactions here on these screens. But the problem is once you do it in Sketch, you're exporting one file and giving that to someone. So the back and forth has to happen through email or Slack or some other way, and you have to go back and make the edits. And I only bring this up because there's a nice manual workflow that we used at Google, not only for being able to work together on things, but also due to privacy and owning everything. Because Google couldn't use some of these online softwares, we were forced to use Google products, namely Google Docs, drawings, and spreadsheets. It seems like an issue and a constraint, but it really turned out for me to be a really nice way of working, and I want to show you a little bit of that to wrap this video up. So just like we created this flow where we see all the screens and the hotspots of interaction points of where you tap or swipe. You can do this in Google Drawings as well. I'm assuming most of you haven't even used Google Drawings before, but essentially it's this blank canvas that works pretty well with graphics that you can drop in here and kind of comment. So what I've essentially done is recreated what I showed you in Sketch. So these are all separate assets. The nice thing about these, you can just replace image. I can select a new export screen and update that. So it becomes a quick way to create very clean documents, swap out screens and create your flows. This took me like 10 minutes to make, not even that. The nice thing is that I pasted in these graphics as well of the touch points, and I can mark up just like I did in Sketch. I can also comment and note what's happening, which we can all do in Sketch. So I haven't showed you anything here that's new. The difference about using Google Drawings for this is, one, I can just now share this, right? Like I can just go share at whoever I'm working with, and they can now see this document. I can give them editing rights. If they're another designer or someone I'm working with, I can give them commenting rights or just view rights. So this immediately allows you to share a design and a flow and a lot of information very quickly across a lot of different people that might have different permissions and different ways you want to work with them. Another great thing is if you allow people to comment, they can very well see this document and comment and say, hey Joel, love the loading state, but let's show percentage as well. Engineer can leave me that comment. I now can see this comment, update that screen in Sketch, re-export it, and just replace. It becomes a very nice way to have a living document through the evolution of a project that incorporates everyone else into it as well. I know that there's commenting and other things that InVision offers, but my problem with commenting in InVision is that it doesn't give me this high-level perspective. No one can quickly look and see the different flows in the different areas of the app. They have to literally click through. It's very easy to get lost in those flows. And it's very time-consuming to create a very comprehensive flow with those hotspots. So this is kind of like a Frankenstein of different software and different flows, but this, for me, has been the right density of information with detail with also providing like this high-level view of the application. When I was at Android, we would create these documents. They'd be these huge posters. This is like a small, but we'd create these huge posters that we'd actually end up printing on a plotter and bring into meetings, and we'd actually be able to see the full flow, see the detail of the UI, and also draw on it, cut it up, light it on fire. These documents you can print, you can export as PDF, you can publish to the web. So there's a lot of freedom here and a lot of scalability here. You can kind of do with it what you will. If you are in the scenario of trying to work with lots of people across a complex flow and having static documents that aren't working for you, I encourage you to give this a try. I used it for years and kind of love it still. We're not doing this at Design Inc. because we're literally all sitting in the same rooms. It's very easy for us to talk through some of these things, why I created this first flow, which is like, I don't really need to go into all the detail of interactions. I just want to make sure we're hitting all the main points with this. I don't know if all of that was very linear, but essentially I've provided kind of 3 different ways that I've worked and I'm working. One is like just the main points of your app with a simple icon that's referential and some detail. And then also kind of a visual structure of platforms and how you might move through a flow. If you want to level that up, you can provide screens and show the actual UI that you've designed or sketches, as well as some of the flow. If you want to do it in your actual sketch file, I've used indicator dots and different interaction visuals to show how you might move through an app. You can figure out different ways to export this and share it. And lastly, if you want to have full commenting, shareability, presenting, printing, this is a nice way to kind of get all of it in one space. It just takes a little bit of work with importing your images, but I've seen it to be a good tool. I've seen it work as a good tool, and it's pretty efficient for working within larger organizations. That is that. I'm going to release this template with the different symbols and the different states that you can use for creating flows. If it's useful, please let me know. These things are very easy for me to make. I have them usually sitting on a hard drive somewhere, and glad to offer them for free. Once again, thanks for watching. If you haven't watched the first 2 videos of this series, feel free to check them out. I also have a video called Delivering Designs, which talks very specifically about how I work in Sketch and namely Zeppelin. But yeah, hope this helps. Thanks for watching. Always subscribe, share with your friends. If you have anything you'd like to hear or anything you want me to cover, let me know. I'd love to dig in. Thank you.